Good morning. I'm Shelley Maley with Dreamcatcher Career Coaching, and this is my podcast, Young Professionals Career Catalyst. My guest today is Chad Bruckner, Army veteran, retired police detective, keynote speaker, author, and mindset and performance coach. And wow, that's a mouthful. Welcome to the Young Professionals Career Catalyst, Chad. So excited to speak with you today.
Hi, good morning, Shelley. How are you? Thanks for having me here.
I'm doing well. So let's talk a little bit about your childhood. What did you envision doing when you were a kid?
Oh, I'm a dreamer. So, I could have been a good employee for Dreamcatcher coaching, but my dream as a kid was to play center field for the Philadelphia Phillies. I played baseball growing up. Sports was my passion. So naturally, as being my number one passion, playing sports, being the Phillies were my number one team. And the Phillies came into my life at a time when, we're going through some hardships for our family at that time. And the Phillies were this portal into just escapism, probably out of my house and into this reality where I get to envision myself, with the uniform and the hat and which cleats I'm going to wear. And it was like this, just, taking me out of my mindset. And there was a point actually in high school where I didn't miss an entire Phillies game. And I was, I had a lot of friends and had activities, but I had to make sure I'm home Friday, Saturday nights at 7 p.m. or 7:05 back then to watch the Phillies. Even as a kid, I was going to watch every inning, every game. And I did that for like 2 seasons. And they were horrible in the 90s. They were horrible. They were losing 100 games. So that was what I wanted to do. It was play for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Okay. And then how did you become interested? You're a retired police detective. How did you get interested in becoming involved with the police career?
Yeah, so it's again something I never thought I'd be doing, which is pretty much the story of my life. I never had direct plans for anything that I've ever been done. Everything I've ever achieved, it's always been the result of, and I think I'm just figuring this out with you on this live on the show, but it's been like the result of having to figure things out in real time, and that learned something, and that pivoted me into the next chapter, the next realm of my life. And so I went in the Army at 17, didn't have a direct plan. I wasn't the best student growing up, didn't really get great grades. Passing high school was a challenge, getting my diploma my senior year. And I graduated at 17. So I was young, I was immature. So it was either working at Uncle Steve's gas station, which we talked about, or going in the military. My dad was in the military. My grandfather was in the military. My uncle was in the military. So that's what I did. I went in the military at 17. I went in the U.S. Army infantry, and I did that full where I was supposed to do 4 years. I went in 1998. But then, of course, 9/11 happened 3 years into my enlistment. That changed my whole life, for everyone's life, but certainly for me, being on active duty military at that time, that to this day, it affects me greatly.
Yes, I'm sure.
So yeah, that I ended up doing 8 years from 17 to 25. When I was getting ready to get out before 9/11 happened, coming up on that final year, my mom was asking me to be a police officer. And the hometown I grew up in, great police officers, but my only experience with them was traffic enforcement. So when I first got my license at 16, a couple speeding tickets. So my perspective was so limited that when my mom said, Chad, you'd be a great police officer. You love people. You care about, doing the right thing and always being there for people. And Mom, I don't want to write tickets. Like, that is not what I want to do for X number of years. And after 9/11, when we went to Iraq, that really changed. Like, that was obviously, for obvious reasons, that was a profound experience for me in many ways. One of the ways it opened my eyes to the need, to the importance of community helpers, to the importance of protectors, to the importance of police. I never thought about that, how that thin line between chaos and order. I saw that over there because we're doing para law enforcement operations. When I first went in the military in 98, Shelley, it was like the most peaceful time.
Yeah.
And there was no conflict, no war. It was amazing then. And we're training for like in the forest environments. And I know I'm keep rambling here, but we trained in the forest environments. When we went to Iraq, it was all urban and buildings and structure. So now you're dealing with citizens of that town, that village. So you're having to learn how to communicate to them. You're having to learn how to help and serve them because they're innocent. They didn't do anything wrong. And it was like this portal into like, whoa, I think there's more to policing than writing tickets. So yeah, when I came back from Iraq, I was 25. I really not much going on. So pursued the police academy and I was full speed ahead.
That's great. Awesome. So in college, what did you major in?
Yeah, so I was a criminal justice major.
Okay.
And I went to school later when I was a cop. I didn't actually go back to school till I was a police officer.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Mhm.
All right. So, you have identified your purpose as assisting first responders and veterans. Was your experience in the military something that helped you come to that conclusion, or what was behind that identification of your purpose?
It's something that's always been in there, which is why I'm so bold to help people want to step out and step into who they are. It's always been in there for me. Started when I was a kid, and just some of those experiences, being the oldest of three, and needing to sacrifice at times. And I'm not, I don't want to say this in a heroic. Everybody sacrifices when you're going through a hardship. Everybody plays a role,
Right.
but just taking on that older sibling role, kind of unknowingly or unwittingly. I always felt like my job was a good leader in that regard. That's what made me so good at my job, was I didn't have to know everything, but I did care about you more than I cared about myself.
Right.
And I didn't realize in a leadership role, no one tells you at 17, hey, you're going to probably be good in the military. Just to give you a little heads up, because one, you're a hard worker. Two, you really care about doing the right thing. And three, you really value people
Hmm.
over everything else. And I want you to know that's a big deal. Like nobody talks to anybody like that. So you just go through your life and you're like, wow. But as I started having success in leadership roles, it was because of that. But what was the question?
What led you to identify your purpose as
Oh,
assisting
okay, yeah.
first
So
responders?
it was. Sorry, I'm passionate today. So it was always in there, and it wasn't until I went through my own hardship at 40 when I was a police officer that. So I was always training people, looking out for people as a cop, as a soldier. Always had strong relationships, and never realized kind of why they were strong. Didn't realize kind of I had the ability to make those relationships, be vulnerable, and really break things down. So when I went through my own hardship, my own burnout, when I fell down and had to pick myself back up, that's really when I started to see myself for who I was. And I didn't realize how much I didn't love myself as much as I thought I needed to before.
Hmm.
And then I didn't realize how much of a good person I am now. So it was like this empowering thing that when, like, growing up, it was always about others, give to others, give to others, give to others, my whole life. Then you
Right.
go, I chose service professions, give to others. So people are like, oh, well, do this for yourself or take this for you. Oh, it's not about me. It's not about me. You just get so conditioned to say
Right.
that when you burn out, it's like, whoa, the only way I'm going to survive, the only way I'm going to make it back, and I have to make it back, is I have to make it about me. Holy crap, how do I do that? And that
Yeah.
probably was the hardest thing for me.
Right.
No doubt, was being a little selfish. And
Hmm.
so, but as I started to do that, I started to be self-explore, realized that the purpose I had in me all along to help people, I've been doing it. So that's a good thing. But man, I have a lot to learn and humble myself on. I had an ego that needs to be fixed. So yeah, it's going to be some hard work, and you're going to have to put yourself through some. And it's funny. I remember having like this internal conversation. Like this is probably the last point you can back out now before it gets real messy, and then you can't go back. I remember this like conversation started, and then I thought to myself, wait a second, you already did this. Oh, no, you can't. No, now you got to go all the way. It was like this internal. This like a couple years ago.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that's kind of like pushing through all that. So the purpose has always been in there. It's only in the last couple of years I'd say I was aware of it, or I recognize it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think those of us that have a lot of empathy, we make really good helpers and coaches and such. So it's good that you're able to always do something where you felt like you were helping other people,
Yeah, thank you.
even
Yeah.
now. So, how did you get into the professional speaking circuit?
Yeah, I've always loved speaking. I always loved storytelling. It's probably is my favorite thing in the world, even more than the Phillies or baseball. Storytelling, I don't know. I guess maybe going through some of those adverse experiences as a kid, when you feel something negative and you want to talk about it or share it, or you want to not feel negative and you don't know how to not feel negative. So I remember my 6th grade English teacher handed me this black and white English composition book. And remember those old school composition books? And he suggested I journal. And I was 10 years old. I was young. So I entered 6th grade. It was September. School year starts September of 91. So I was 10. I didn't turn 11 November 91. So I'm looking back like, wow, like I have kids now. So I've had a 10-year-old twice now that have already passed that phase. I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine they were dealing with what I was dealing with at that age, and the questions they might have had, and really didn't have a lot of resources to have those questions answered. So you just kind of choke it in and you soothe yourself and just, I don't know. It's just a crazy time, curious time. Anyway, so he gave me this English book, composition book, and a journal, and I fell in love with it, Shelly. I journaled and journaled and journaled and journaled and journaled, and I still to this day, journal. It was so cathartic, and that was my way of feeling better, was telling stories, myself stories, was getting it out and realizing that, like, okay, like I have a lot to say. So as I was growing up, I started my brother and I would make, little home movies or, little home audio recordings. And we thought we were going to be musicians, actually. So he was playing the guitar and he was going to go be a musician, and he was going to come back, and I would be like the business guy of the group. And I would just do the vocals. He'd do the producing. I'd be the camera guy because he said I was better looking than he was. And so we had this whole plan. And so I think that was us reacting to being all, kids in our house, just trying to be creative and have fun with that. So I would say start as a kid, that need to just tell stories. That's probably how I started.
Yeah, that's great. So I saw this quote on your website. It says, "You are the captain of your ship, and he," meaning you, Chad, "is your first mate." How did that quote come about?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know if I heard that somewhere. I'm a chameleon, so I do hear things from people, and when they sit on my soul, I find a way, like they just sit in there and I use them later. But I don't know. I don't know if I heard that from somebody directly or it just came out of me. But it's the analogy. You know what it is? Maybe somebody gave me the analogy, and then I got to the captain and the first mate. Somebody gave me the analogy. That's what it was. Somebody gave me the analogy. You're like a tour guide, and I went to like a boat. But and your role as a coach, to be really successful as a coach, is you're walking with that person, walking, riding, floating, flying, whatever. But you're with that person and you're pointing things out to them that you find interesting, that maybe you think from your experience as just one person, but with one person's experience that they might not be seeing because you wouldn't have seen it also where you're going through what they're going through. Or some of that stuff we're going through because you're intuitive and eclectic and you surround yourself with people who've been through those similar experiences. You listen to how they handle it. That's another big aspect of a coach. So you're pointing things out to them. It's up to them to see it. So it's like I say, the first mate, it's like, hey, Captain, there's an iceberg up ahead. It's up to your left, 10 o'clock. I think we're going to hit it. It's not going to be good. We have like 1,600 people on board. This is Titanic, by the way. We have like 1,600 people on board, and the captain goes, let's just go. That's on the captain. He made that decision. Now, obviously, there's lives at stake. She's probably not going to do that. But so that's what I believe with the first mate is, like, our job as the coach is to point it out to the captain, who's the client. Hey, you might want to look at this, or might want to look at that. Hey, did you know about this about yourself? That's amazing. And we're just highlighting these things, good or bad, because that's our job to be objective and accountable and honest with them. And it's up to them to either take notice of that landmark and say, yeah, I should go visit that. Or they say, no, I'm not going to go visit that. And you see their reaction, their nonverbals, and you say, okay. But then you, as a good coach, will check that in mind for later. And you might want to revisit that landmark 3-4 months later when you see the progress being made. Now that landmark isn't so scary. Now you point that out again. It's like, oh, yeah, let's go check that out. And you're like, and you drive up to that landmark. So, yeah, that's the first mate, is like really supportive of the captain. But I think a good first mate is not a yes person. So you're not just saying, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. You're loyal, fiercely loyal, and fiercely honest. And part of that is you got to say the hard thing. So I think that's really what being a good coach, if you're going to do it right and not just take people's money, which I've been, I've run into coaches and I see some of that game, and it's like, whoa, any industry, you're going to have the need for that, but or the chance of that stuff happening. But I think to be really good is sometimes you're going to say things that are going to make the client a little uncomfortable, a little unhappy. But if they know you care about them, they'll say thank you for that. They'll say thank you for giving them negative feedback. And it's not even negative, but constructive feedback. Thanks. I didn't know that. Thanks for pointing that out. I don't want to do that. I want to get better. Oh, thank you for that. It's almost like their personal shame. And then is the key time to pick them up and say, it's okay. Not double down on their shame. Pick up that shame, pierce through that, and say, it's okay. I've been there and I'm not there anymore. Here's how you're going to get out of this. It's not going to be like this forever. And you give them that blueprint and that confidence that they can get themselves out of it. Especially men. Men think if they don't have solutions, I'm running into this now. If they don't have a solution ahead of them, we're problem solvers. Men, and I can only speak for myself being a man, but we're problem solvers. So if we don't feel like we have a solution ahead of us, we get frustrated. And that's when we do bad behaviors. That's when we do harmful things. So helping men realize, like, no, in that moment, when you hit that roadblock, you have a choice still to know what you're capable of. And it's not to do bad things. It's to do good things. And if you don't know how to do good things, call somebody and figure out what a good thing is, because this is a critical time of your life. Just because you got fired or just because your wife left you, doesn't mean you double down and become even more dysfunctional or toxic. That's not what society needs at all. That's not what you need. So, and it's just, walking with people and being comfortable walking with people when they're messy, because I'm messy too.
Sure. We all are. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's so important to be able to point out those things that a lot of times someone may not even be aware of about themselves or in denial about themselves. And you really can't progress until you accept that constructive criticism and then take it and do something good with it instead of getting defensive and shutting down. So
it's not easy. We all get defensive. Like you said, we're all humans. My wife's giving me feedback lately, through all this growth, and I'm asked, because I think you'll never stop growing. I think we're always going to keep doing that. So I have to get still in the mindset, because I get frustrated with negative feedback sometimes that I perceive to be negative. I'm like, babe, you see how hard I'm working? But I have to remember, it's going to always be that way. So getting myself in a mindset to say, yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. That's like the new thing I've been saying in my head. Thank you for sharing. So, because that's really good stuff. Because I think, we're usually the biggest people that get in our own way. We're our own biggest obstacles ourselves.
Oh, that's for sure. So you mentioned servant leadership on your website. What does that mean to you?
Putting others before yourself, putting others before the leader. Recognizing that role is a responsibility. That role is not responsibility. That role is a privilege, which turns into a responsibility, a deep responsibility. That's not bound by a schedule, a clock, parameters, obviously boundaries, but not these hardcore check the block parameters. That's not servant leadership. That's called being a boss or a supervisor. That's when you work at a part-time job at 16 at the supermarket, like I did, and you're working 20 hours a week as a kid, and you need to get off for the prom, and you fill out a request slip to the supervisor, and you might not even talk to him. You'll just see it in your inbox because he said approve with his initials on it. Like, that's what a supervisor and a boss is. But other than that, like, servant leadership is, no, I need to, hey, what's going on? Or why aren't you coming to work today? Or what's going on in your life? Everything all right? It's like you have to dig deep in that person's life, because what I believe is I have this one life philosophy, and that's what I do in my coaching is, and I just experienced this. I was an undercover detective. I remember coming home unable to turn the cases off. I was buying drugs in the community or running a cases where people were undercover, other undercovers were buying drugs, but really being in that where the rubber meets the road in communities, like people are working and living and driving, leaving their apartment complex. Nobody knows we're out there keeping the community safe, what we're doing. So it was this amazing, profound time in my life, but I would come home and I was unable to shut it off. I was unable to be present with these little kids, these little babies I had, as much as I wanted to, as much as I want to hold them and be present. It was just hard to shut it off. And people are like, oh, you have to have two lives, Chad. Have your professional life and your personal life. I understand the concept, but my brain couldn't get to there. So now as a coach, I really, what helped me is my brain is, and I have ADHD. I'm comfortable saying that because I think that it's helped me be successful when I've learned how to do that. And I want to help other people that have that understand it's not a liability or disability. But sometimes I get sidetracked and get confused. So there we go. It is a liability sometimes for time, but totally just sidetracked myself. See, this is a good test.
The servant leadership part.
The servant leadership. Yeah. Anyway, I rambled and I got sidetracked, but
that's okay.
The most important thing is, just, I think, caring, not caring about your own contract, your own salary, your own time off, which I get. We all have inherent needs. This is where the hardest challenges, and I empathize tremendously with every single person, every single executive, every leader, every supervisor, every manager, every director, like everybody is a human being that obviously that goes home and probably has a family or has friends or has dogs, something in their life that they're loving and they care about more than anything in the world. We're all that way. And this is the challenge. Challenge. So when you're in that role at work, the people you lead are just like you.
Mm-hmm.
They go home, and anything you do, so if you make it about yourself, because I get it, you're worried about yourself in a leadership role, I get it. You're an executive, you've earned that right. People say I've earned that right to get here. People have stepped on my toes to get here, so I can do that to other people. I just think all those are flawed perspectives, because really it's hard to just look in the mirror and say, no, just because that happened to me, I have a responsibility not to do that to people behind me. If you're somebody, a director that has 30 employees under you, you're really leading 300. If they're married and they have 2 kids or something like that. So,
good point.
you're not leading a small team. You have a direct responsibility. Your decisions, the way you live your life, how healthy or unhealthy you are, has a direct effect on 300 people. And we just don't want to say that. No, but it does, because every one of those people you step on, they go home and take that to their family.
You're
and they
right.
take it out on their family. So I've really developed this one life philosophy to understand it's all related. So if we could put benchmarks, remove hurdles in every aspect of our lives and allow them to seamlessly work together, as hard as that is, and as much as the world doesn't want us to do it that way, I find it's like if people can do it and have the patience to get through it, that's the best way to set up your life, because you're less likely to burn out and you'll be more sustainable to perform at a high level.
True. Very true. You're also a certified recovery specialist. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So when I was towards the end of my policing career, let me back up even further. As a kid growing up playing sports, I never used drugs or alcohol. I think I was at a party like my senior year, the summer that I graduated, before I went to boot camp, and there was peach schnapps. Somebody had peach schnapps were passing around in a joint, and I smoked a joint. I remember that. And then I went in the Army at 17. I played sports. I was busy with other stuff. I had girlfriends. And so going in the Army, then at 17, I graduate. All right, 18, I go to boot camp, or I turn 18 in boot, graduate, go to Korea. So I just turned 18, and now I'm in an Army barracks. And I just highlight this long answer because I like to put context to stories. Now I'm in this drinking culture, this Army culture, which was amazing. I learned a lot being around these. It was all male at the time, infantry, a lot of broken boys. All of us had our own perspectives, our own brokenness we're coming into the world with. It was the infantry, so you didn't have to be the rocket science to do this job. So, I mean, talk about like this petri dish of human experience at such a young age. So the drinking, of course, even probably like kids that had the college experience, I'd say it's probably the same thing. Maybe even a little bit more, because the stress was, I don't even want to say that, stress is relative. Anyway, probably similar experience, that drinking culture. So I was around that. You don't really have the option not to drink. I mean, you could, but you'd almost have to hide in your room and not be a part of that. And nobody wants to be antisocial, because we're not like that. So going in the military now at such a young age, I found myself binge drinking, where I wouldn't drink for weeks or two at the end. But then when I would drink, I'd be drinking for an entire weekend with the guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then wouldn't drink. It was such a weird rhythmic schedule. Even I say that because I think a lot of people can relate to, like, yeah, it is kind of weird. But I think that even creates this unhealthy coping strategy in my brain. It rewired my brain to use alcohol as a coping strategy at such a young age. So I just want to set that, because for the next 15 years, I never really drank that much socially, on weekends, holidays. So fast forward to being a cop, I was approaching 40, and I did go through a work event that was kind of traumatic for me. And that work event really exacerbated my mental and emotional health. So I started drinking every day I defaulted to the coping strategy I knew, which was alcohol.
Right.
So I say that to say, I started drinking every day, and I tried to figure out the shame I had with that and the guilt when I got, when I was trying to get through that. And I realized it was a coping strategy to my mental and emotional health. So,
right.
As I got into therapy, I never actually had to go to treatment. So I got into therapy, really attacked my mental and emotional health. And that's what made me, I'm like, I have no desire to drink alcohol. Absolutely zero. Absolutely zero. And the more I learned about it, the more I filled my brain with knowledge about just everything I've been learning. The last 5 years, I've gotten different trainings and certifications and knowledge. The more I recognize, I see what it is. I see it for what it is, at least in my life. I see this bottle, and I can see the label, the pretty label, and it doesn't even bother me. Like, I could hold it, like, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And just, I recognize what it is. That was my bottle. That was my binky. And now I just have other things in my life that are my binky. So that led me to the last couple of years getting my certified recovery specialist in Pennsylvania. which is really cool. That's a state certification. I didn't even know that was a thing. And you're a peer advocate. You're walking through people in their recovery journey. Could be a couple of days in, could be a couple of weeks in, could be a couple of years in, and they relapse, and now they need a coach. So you're almost like a coach. They call it a recovery specialist. You're a recovery coach, and it's people that have that lived experience, that have that desire to want to help people. And man, you feel, I mean, it was an amazing experience. I did that for about 5 months for this company in Allentown. My schedule got too busy, but it was an amazing experience working, sleeves rolled up in the community with people that need help, need support. And when they know and they look in your eyes and see you care about them, you want to help, amazing.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Again, it goes back to that servant mindset. You want to help other people.
Yeah, for sure.
So you provide a 4-hour workshop and a 4-hour seminar. What are those all about?
Yeah, other brainchildren of mine. When I left policing, I was a police academy instructor, and when you're at the police academy, they give you curriculum. They tell you the course you have to teach. They give you the curriculum. Mm-hmm. They even give you the slides, the slide deck, and it's like, so you really have a little flexibility. It was amazing, great experience. But as a creative, intuitive person, as I was doing this, I said, well, I want to teach this, I want to teach that, and there are other people already teaching that. So when I left policing and went into entrepreneurship, one of the things I wanted to do was, and that was clear, was, I'm going to do the private investigation firm, but a core aspect of that is going to be training or education. That's what started the coaching and the mentorship and all the speaking kind of was, I wanted a part of my PI firm to not just be investigations. I was a detective. I did that. I kind of know that. I wanted to do a little bit of the passion stuff too. And that was presenting, that was teaching, instructing, mentoring, encouraging. And that kind of just slowly matriculated into coaching, which kind of neat. So the 4-hour lead the way is, that's basically, I say the tagline is transforming supervisors into leaders. So if you want to be somebody that leads by example, that models the proper behavior, that gains influence, not using authority. Any boss can say, hey, you're going to do this because you have to do it. And the person will say, well, okay, I am. That's not an effective way to lead, I have found over time. So influence is a better way. It's harder work. It requires more patience. You will sacrifice time and money and energy, absolutely. But what you will gain is high-level relationships, high-level influence. Opportunities will present themselves because of the way you treat other people, the way you lead, the way not only you achieve at a high level, but the way you bring other people along with you. So that's the kind of the influence I want to help people, leaders, go through. So there's that one, and Living 360 is my first responder wellness course, and that's another one that came to be about. To be successful as police officers, we have to be healthy. We have to be, and I speak from experience that I was 30 pounds heavier than I am today. My last, in 2020, working the riots and everything then, because I was unhealthy. I was eating bad. I was drinking. I was stressed out. I was self-medicating and wasn't going to therapy as much as I was now. Like all these reasons why I see it. Wasn't exercising. So wellness is a big deal. Health is a big deal for all of us, but especially first responders. So I help them, with stress management techniques, talk about trauma and why maybe they have some of the symptoms and reactions they do, because it's normal for all of us. You don't have to go through a traumatic event. Everyone's like, well, I was never in a shooting or never in a stabbing. Yeah, you're a police officer. Every day that's traumatic. It might not be big events, but it's the radio going off. It's 911 hang-up calls. Yes. It's these slow burns that eat us over time.
True.
So that's what I help them see that, so they can kind of get these resources in place. I point them into resources and things like that. So
that's great. I'm glad that you're able to provide that type of workshop, seminar. I'm sure it's very helpful.
Thank you.
So it sounds like, excuse me, you've been through a lot through the course of your life and your various career transitions. Is there anything you would change about your career path?
Oh man, this is like a little philosophical question. I like this. I don't think so, Shelley. It's not that I don't have regrets. It's not that I don't have regrets. But I think the things I have learned have all led me to what I know today at 43. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for me to say, like, if I said yes to this one, I should have said no. And if I said no to this one, I should have said yes. In hindsight, obviously, I know that now. What else, like the butterfly effect, what else, just like your logo, like what else would that have? Or do you have a butterfly in your logo, right? Or
no, it's a lotus flower.
The lotus flower, okay. I thought there was like a butterfly inside the flower. that it changes other stuff in your life too. So I just learned to, and I know I'm weird with that stuff. My wife says like, oh, you never really had a plan. And you just take life as it comes. But, I got a master's degree. I have 3 loving children. I've had good careers, had a lot of impact. So it's like, it's been kind of successful for me, even though it has been chaotic at times. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Probably not, even though I do have regrets, obviously, personal decisions I made, way I've treated people, not going to my best friend's funeral when he was killed in Iraq. Just tons of regrets of decisions I made because I made it about myself. So those are some of the personal stuff. That's probably the stuff I regret more than the professional stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I think, we, as hard as some of our career path may have been, we're always learning from it and ideally moving into even a better version of ourselves. So,
okay, I'm going to answer your question. Actually, made me think of something because I want to be honest and not hypocritical because I just did think of it now. But when I found something at the end of the policing career that kind of led to me going through my event that I went through, and it's a whole story that I won't get into, but just from time. But I could have handled the way I found out this information. I could have presented it to the municipality, to the authorities, to my employer. I could have presented that in a better way. I could have had a more gentle, subtle way. But because I thought the actions were personal, despite the fact that they were wrong, I correlated it. I took that to the level where, hey, this is wrong, but you know why it's wrong? And when I did that, I made it personal. Now the way the message and the mechanism in which I was going to deliver that information to whoever was going to be personal. So that was the learning lesson for me for any young professional is you're going to see things in the course of your job, in the course of your career that sit in your belly, that don't feel right, that don't look right. Guess what? It's probably not right. It's probably not right. Your gut is a real thing. Like, trust your gut.
Absolutely.
But take a breath. Talk to somebody you trust and care about. Find a way to get through that situation. I also acknowledge just choking it down and ignoring it for most of us also is going to cause a huge scar in our heart. When we see bad things or hear bad things to people and we just let it go, like that also doesn't work. So there's ways to handle, but just take a breath and consult with somebody instead of kind of being passionate like me and running into things.
Yeah, it's hard when that's part of your personality. My husband always points out that all of my reactions are always emotional. It's always about my feelings about things. And he's much more rational minded, Yeah. I always have to try to be more aware of that. Like, okay, I'm having an emotional response.
Exactly. And it's not rooted in anything bad. Like, it's all out of care and passionate. So, and that's another thing I've learned about people is how to use their emotions and work with them for their benefit and not call them out on it. Like, most of our emotions are responses to wanting to feel good.
Right.
If we're going through a fear reaction, why are we afraid? Because I don't want to be afraid. Like, whatever I'm going through this environment I'm in, I want to be happy, but whatever I'm in is causing me to be afraid. Okay, well, let's figure out a way for you to be happy again. I.e., example, push through this fear. Once I learned that about all of us, it's like, oh, okay, you're actually not mad at me. You're mad at yourself, or you're not disappointed in me. You're disappointed in yourself because I possibly couldn't have given you enough gusto in your life for you to be that disappointed. No, okay, so I'm not going to take this personally. Now I'm going to dig in and be curious. What's going on? What's up? And if you be curious about that, you're consistent. People will tell you because they want help. Most people don't take the time to do that anymore.
Right. Yeah. Most people need the help, but may not realize it or even know how to let themselves feel vulnerable and ask for the help. So Good point. So what's one piece of career advice you would give today's young professionals?
That's a good question. Know who you are. Know who you are. You're not going to know everything about yourself as a person. It's impossible at 20 some years old.
Yes.
But commit yourself to being on the journey to understanding who you are and who you will become. And acknowledging that you don't know who you're going to become and you can't possibly plan for everything in your life. So you have to have some level of humility to allow some of your life to happen to you. You can have these amazing plans, type A personality, networking, going to events to make sure everything in the world lines up perfectly like you want it. I get it. Mm-hmm. But that's just not reality. In the world that I live in, and it might be different than other people's world, but I've just seen it time and time again, that disappointment is aplenty. Disappointment is abound in all of our lives. So know who you are, know where you want to go, and also know that you're going to learn things about yourself along the way that are not favorable, and it's okay. Gives you the opportunity to change it. And
Right.
everything you do today, everything, good or bad, sets you up for tomorrow. So think that, like, whatever you do today
Yes.
sets you up for tomorrow. You make bad choices today, and they're small and subtle. That's okay, and nobody knows about them. They will snowball, and vice versa. You take care of people, hold the door open for people that you can, and you donate, charity if you have that extra dollar to you. You smile, and when you see people, say, hey, good morning, how you doing? And then when somebody's willing to tell you, oh man, I'm not doing good. Oh, what's going on? Actually take the time to listen. Like, all that stuff is painful. It can be sometimes time-wise, because we all have busy lives. That stuff also snowballs. So you just got to make choices how you want to live your life.
Good point. Absolutely. So what's the best way for our audience to get in touch with you, Chad?
So social medias, I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. I'm trying desperately to grow. It's a challenge, but so all my handles on socials are at Chad B Motivates. Chad B for Bruckner Motivates, with an S at the end. And then my website is motivate-change.com, motivate-change.com. Okay. So they can sign up for there to go on the newsletters. You can buy the book from there. My book that I wrote last year. If you buy it, you can buy it on Amazon, but if you buy it on my website, I can sign a little personalized note. I have a little wristband, resilience in action wristband I can throw in the box, and I'll mail it to you personally, or hand deliver it if you're local, whatever. So
what's the title of the book?
The Holy Trinity of Successful and Healthy Police Organizations. Improving leadership, culture, and wellness. It's a little long, but yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time today, Chad.
Thank you, Shelley. Appreciate all you do. Really keep up the great work. Yeah, really admire you, all the coaching you're doing, the events you put on to help people really learn and level up in not only their knowledge of professional stuff, professional things they need to be successful, but like you have this ability to, hey, look, if you be better person, have a little bit more etiquette to you, have a little bit better values, that translate into the workforce as well. You don't hear people talk like that or kind of show up and comfortable in events acting like that and performing like that. So keep up the good work. Caught my attention.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. To my audience, thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a review on this and earlier episodes of the Young Professionals Career Catalyst on my YouTube channel. And tune in for the next episode of the Young Professionals Career Catalyst on Monday, August 26th at 9:30 a.m.